On February 13, 2017, two young girls set out for a walk on a local nature trail. It was a day off from school, a brief break in the middle of a cold Indiana winter. They never returned home. What followed became one of the most haunting and closely watched investigations in modern true crime history. The initial hours were filled with growing concern. Abigail Williams, who was 13 years old, Liberty German, who was 14, were inseparable friends. Known to their families as Abby, known to their classmates as Libby. They were in the 8th grade at Delphi Community Middle School. Friends described them as bright, kind, and full of life. Abby was known for her artistic talents and love of volleyball. Libby was an avid softball player and a saxophone player in the school band. Like many teenagers, they enjoyed spending time together, taking photos, and sharing their experiences on social media. On the afternoon of their disappearance, Kelsey German drove the girls to the trail system near Freedom Bridge. From there, the girls walked east toward the Monon High Bridge, an old decommissioned railroad trestle that spans Deer Creek. It was a place they had visited before. At approximately 2:07 p.m., Libby posted a photo of Abby walking on the bridge to her Snapchat account. This would be the last public image of either girl. They had planned to explore the area for a couple of hours before Libby's father was scheduled to pick them up later that afternoon. The timeline of that day has been meticulously pieced together by investigators. The girls were dropped off around 1:30 p.m. For the next hour or so, they walked the trails and the bridge, documenting their small adventure with Libby's smartphone. According to authorities, it was during this time that they encountered an individual on the bridge. The details of that encounter would later become the central focus of the entire investigation. When Libby's father arrived to pick them up at the prearranged spot, the girls were not there. Initial calls to Libby's phone went unanswered, and a sense of dread began to settle in. Their families began searching the area immediately, but as the hours passed with no sign of the girls, they contacted the authorities. The official search began around 5:30 p.m. Carroll County Sheriff's Department, Indiana State Police, Delphi Fire Department, and numerous local volunteers. The search effort continued through the cold night with teams using flashlights and all-terrain vehicles to navigate the rugged landscape. The hope was that the girls were simply lost or had been delayed, but as the search stretched into the next morning, the community braced for the worst possible news. As dawn broke on Tuesday, February 14, 2017, the search for Abby and Libby intensified. The number of volunteers grew. Hundreds of concerned citizens joined law enforcement. The search area was expansive and difficult. Dense woods, steep ravines, the cold waters of Deer Creek. Search teams worked on foot, on ATVs, and in the air. Authorities established a command center while the families waited, holding on to a dwindling hope for a safe outcome. The entire town seemed to hold its breath. Later that afternoon, the community's worst fears were realized. Authorities announced that the bodies of two deceased individuals had been discovered. The discovery was made by a group of volunteers about a half-mile upstream from the Monon High Bridge. The location was on private property, not far from the trail system where the girls were last seen. At a press conference, law enforcement officials confirmed the tragic news, stating that the bodies were found around 12:15 p.m. They did not immediately identify the victims, pending formal identification and notification of the families. The following day, on February 15th, authorities formally identified the victims as Abigail Williams and Liberty German, and officially classified the case as a double homicide investigation. The Indiana State Police took the lead, working alongside the Carroll County Sheriff's Department and the FBI. Investigators secured the scene and collected evidence, asking the public for any information. The community came together through vigils and memorials, tying purple and gray ribbons in solidarity. In the days following the discovery, investigators revealed a crucial piece of evidence recovered from Libby German's smartphone. The phone, found near the girls' bodies, contained video and audio recordings that Libby had discreetly captured in the moments leading up to the crime. Authorities called Libby's quick thinking heroic, saying activating her camera provided their most important leads. On February 19th, police released a grainy, pixelated image of a man on the Monon High Bridge. Blue jeans, a blue jacket, a brown hoodie. Authorities identified him as the primary suspect. Just a few days later, on February 22nd, investigators released a short audio clip from Libby's phone. In the recording, a man's voice can be heard saying, "Guys, down the hill." Authorities urged the public to listen carefully to the voice, its tone, the manner of speaking, hoping someone would recognize it. The audio and the bridge image became the centerpiece of the public investigation. Police received thousands of tips from across the country and around the world. For years, those two pieces were the only public clues. In April 2019, the Indiana State Police held a major press conference, releasing a new sketch of the suspect and a slightly longer video clip showing his gait and mannerisms. Then Superintendent Douglas Carter said, "We believe you are hiding in plain sight." The new information re-energized interest, but also caused confusion. Later, investigators confirmed focus on the younger-looking 2019 sketch. The years following the murders were marked by an intensive, often frustrating investigation. A multi-agency task force was formed: Indiana State Police, Carroll County Sheriff's Department, and the FBI. They pursued thousands of leads. Authorities said they were making progress, but for a long time there were no arrests and very few public updates. That silence was painful for families and the community desperate for answers. Investigators insisted they were methodical and careful, not wanting to jeopardize the case by revealing too much. Law enforcement explored numerous theories, investigated many persons of interest, executed search warrants, collected DNA samples, and conducted countless interviews. The crime scene was remote with no known eyewitnesses beyond the victims. Digital evidence from Libby's phone was helpful, but did not yield a clear image of the suspect's face. Much of the work was traditional police work, sorting massive volumes of tips, trying to connect scattered information. The small team felt the toll and the immense pressure to bring justice for Abby and Libby. Public statements stressed commitment and asked for patience and continued community support, reminding that even a tiny detail could break the case open. Effort continued largely behind the scenes. Leadership and strategy changed over time. Fresh eyes reviewed the files, and authorities issued periodic reminders, including interest in a driver or vehicle near an old CPS building on the day of the murders. Each new tip signaled the case wasn't cold. As the formal investigation proceeded slowly, the Delphi murders became a focal point for a growing community of online sleuths and true crime enthusiasts. The haunting audio clip and the mysterious image of the man on the bridge fueled widespread speculation across social media platforms, across YouTube channels, across dedicated podcasts. People from all over the world dissected the evidence, proposed theories, attempted to identify the suspect. This public interest kept the case in the national spotlight, ensuring Abby and Libby were not forgotten. But the surge had significant downsides. Online forums spread misinformation and unfounded rumors. People publicly named or scrutinized, often without basis, faced harassment and reputational damage. Law enforcement issued repeated statements asking the public to stop speculation and trust the official investigation. Officials warned amateur sleuthing could interfere with police work, cause distress for the families, and compromise future prosecution. The families navigated this with grace and strength. They gave interviews, used social media to share approved information, and honored the girls' memories. They balanced gratitude for public support with correcting false narratives and protecting the investigation. The Delphi case highlights a modern reality. Public involvement can help generate leads, but also creates real risks. The line between helpful observation and harmful speculation is thin. The search for truth played out on two parallel tracks: the official, methodical law enforcement investigation, and the vast, often chaotic public inquiry online. Both shaped the long journey toward an arrest. On October 28, 2022, more than 5.5 years after the murders, authorities made a stunning announcement. The Indiana State Police confirmed that an arrest had been made in connection with the deaths of Abby Williams and Libby German. The news brought a mix of shock, relief, renewed grief. At a press conference on October 31st, officials formally named the suspect: Richard M. Allen, a 50-year-old resident of Delphi. Alan had lived and worked in the town for years, matching the superintendent's statement that the killer was likely hiding in plain sight. Court documents later unsealed revealed the breakthrough came after re-examining early tips. Alan had been interviewed by police in 2017 and reportedly admitted to being on the Monon High Bridge Trail that afternoon, but said he had not seen the girls. Investigators found a witness who saw a man matching the suspect's description that day. The probable cause affidavit alleged an unspent bullet was found at the scene, and that bullet was forensically linked to a firearm owned by Alan. The arrest of a local man, a father and a licensed pharmacy technician who worked at a local CVS store, was deeply unsettling for the small community. Alan was initially charged with 2 counts of murder. He was arrested at his workplace and taken into custody, held without bond at a state facility for his own safety. The arrest marked a major turning point, the culmination of years of law enforcement work and the patience of the victims' families. Authorities warned the arrest was not the end of the story. Carroll County prosecutor Nicholas McClellan said the case was far from over and that Alan was presumed innocent until proven guilty. Focus shifted from the search for a suspect to the legal process that would follow. Following the arrest of Richard Allen, the case entered the judicial system. Legal procedures, motions, hearings. The initial charges of murder were filed, and the court entered a plea of not guilty on Allen's behalf. One of the first significant developments was the public release of the probable cause affidavit, providing the first official glimpse of some evidence, including the link between the unspent bullet and his firearm. However, much of the evidence in the case was placed under a gag order by the judge, severely limiting what attorneys, law enforcement, and family members could say publicly. The legal proceedings have been complex and have moved slowly. A trial date was set, but it has been postponed multiple times due to legal challenges and motions from the prosecution and the defense. Allen's defense attorneys argued for a change of venue, stating it would be impossible for him to receive a fair trial in Carroll County due to intense, long-standing media coverage and public opinion. They also raised issues about the conditions of his confinement and challenged the validity of the search warrant that led to the discovery of key evidence at his home. A significant twist emerged in 2023 when prosecutors filed documents suggesting a different theory of the crime, alleging a ritualistic sacrifice conducted by individuals affiliated with a pagan Norse religion known as Odinism, and suggesting Allen did not act alone. No one else has been charged. The defense called these claims fanciful and unsupported. As of today, December 26, 2025, the case remains in the pre-trial phase. Legal battles over evidence, witness testimony, and the integrity of the investigation continue to unfold. The gag order remains largely in effect, meaning much of the information discussed in court filings is not available to the public. The path to a trial has been fraught with delays and unexpected turns, testing patience once again. While the legal process continues its slow and winding course, the focus for the families and the Delphi community remains on honoring the memories of Abby Williams and Libby German. They are remembered not as victims in a famous case, but as the vibrant, joyful young girls they were. The girl who loved art, the girl who loved sports, the friend who was always there to listen, the friend who was always ready for an adventure. Their legacies are preserved in memories and in community projects established in their honor. The families started a nonprofit, L&A Park Foundation, with the goal of building a community sports park and amphitheater in Delphi, the Abby and Libby Memorial Park, a place of joy, activity, and togetherness. It ensures their names are associated with hope and community spirit. The case forever changed the town, yet revealed profound strength as neighbors supported neighbors and strangers offered compassion. Vigils, fundraisers, and simple acts of kindness have been a constant source of strength. Ultimately, this story is about remembering 2 lives with dignity and respect, a community's refusal to be defined by tragedy, and a family's enduring love. This case reminds us how one small moment can change a community forever, and why remembering the victims matters more than the headlines. Subscribe for respectful, fact-based true crime coverage.